Catherine stood near the glass entrance of Lohari car dealership, sipping her perfectly brewed cappuccino. She had worked hard to build her reputation as a sharp, no-nonsense manager who knew exactly what kind of clients were worth her time. Luxury, elegance, prestige. These were the values she upheld. And then he walked in. A tall black man, dressed in a plain white t-shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers that looked like they had run a marathon too many times. He didn't have the confident stride of a high-profile businessman or the air of someone who belonged here. Catherine arched an eyebrow, already preparing to dismiss him. Still, she forced herself to be polite. Appearances mattered. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice professional but clipped. The man nodded casually. "Yeah. I'm looking to buy a Mercedes S-Class." Catherine almost laughed. The new S-Class models started at $120,000, a price tag she was certain this man couldn't afford. She crossed her arms. "Sir, maybe you'd be more comfortable looking at our pre-owned selection." The man's expression didn't change. His deep brown eyes held something unreadable, but he simply said, "No. I want a new one." Catherine sighed. She had been in this business long enough to know when someone was wasting her time. "I'm sorry, but we only offer test drives and quotes to pre-approved buyers. Perhaps a different dealership would be a better fit for you." A slow smile formed on the man's face, not of amusement, but of understanding. "Ah," he said softly, as if he had just figured something out. Then, without another word, he turned around and walked out the door. Catherine watched him go, already moving on in her mind. Another time waster gone. But what she didn't know was that this man wasn't done with her yet. And soon, she would regret the way she treated him. Catherine barely gave the man another thought as she went back to her desk. She had real customers to deal with, people who could actually afford the luxury cars she sold. But then, it happened. Not even 10 minutes after he walked out, the sleek glass doors of Lohari car dealership swung open again. But this time, he wasn't alone. A fleet of black SUVs pulled up outside. Not one. Not two. 5. The entire showroom went silent. Employees, customers, everyone turned to look as a group of well-dressed men in designer suits stepped out of the SUVs, each carrying a briefcase. Catherine's stomach twisted. Something about this wasn't normal. And then she saw him. The same man she had just kicked out. But now, he wasn't just some casually dressed stranger. He was in charge. With an effortless confidence, he walked back into the dealership, his expression calm but sharp. The men with the briefcases followed behind him in a perfect formation. Catherine felt her throat go dry. Who the hell was this guy? He approached her desk and, with a small smirk, pulled out his phone. "Yeah," he said, as if continuing a casual conversation. "I'm back at Lohari. Go ahead and send it through." A few seconds later, her receptionist gasped. Catherine turned and saw her staring at a screen, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then the receptionist stammered, "Ma'am. We just received a wire transfer." Catherine frowned. "A wire transfer? From who?" The receptionist gulped. "From him." She pointed at the man. "For $2.5 million. Catherine's heart stopped. Her eyes snapped back to him, her mind racing. What was happening? And then, with a slow, deliberate smile, he finally spoke. "I was planning to buy multiple cars today." Catherine's face went pale. She had just kicked out a man who could buy the entire dealership if he wanted to. And now, everyone in the room was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Catherine barely spared the man another thought as she returned to her desk, flipping through paperwork, convinced she had handled yet another waste of time. "Some people just don't belong here," she muttered under her breath, taking a sip of her coffee. But before the warmth of the drink could even settle in her stomach, the glass doors swung open again. And this time, he wasn't alone. A fleet of black SUVs pulled up outside, their engines purring like caged beasts. The doors opened in perfect sync, and out stepped 6 men in designer suits, each carrying a briefcase. The air in the showroom shifted. The low murmur of conversation died instantly. Employees stopped what they were doing, their gazes snapping toward the unexpected guests. Even the customers, some of whom had been negotiating deals, fell silent, watching the scene unfold. Then, walking in at the center of it all, was him. The same man Catherine had dismissed just minutes ago. Only now, there was a different air about him. He no longer looked like a casually dressed nobody. He looked like a man in control. Catherine's heartbeat spiked. The man walked toward the center of the dealership, his movements slow and deliberate. Catherine found herself rooted to the spot. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had kicked him out. He wasn't supposed to come back. Her carefully curated world, where she decided who was worth her time, was suddenly collapsing. The men in suits stepped forward, placing their briefcases onto one of the sleek glass counters. With a soft click, one of them popped open. A gasp rippled through the showroom. Inside, neatly stacked and bound with crisp paper bands, were rows of $100 bills. Catherine felt her pulse in her throat. What was happening? The man, now standing directly in front of her, tilted his head slightly, studying her expression. "About that S-Class," he said smoothly. "Can I take it for a test drive now?" His voice was calm. But there was something behind it, something sharp, something that sent a chill racing down her spine. Catherine swallowed hard. Her mind raced. This had to be a setup. Right? Some kind of elaborate joke? Because there was no way, that this man had the kind of money that required briefcases to carry it. And yet, it was all right there in front of her. A nervous laugh bubbled up in Catherine's throat, but it died before it could escape. This man had just flipped the script. Moments ago, she had looked down on him. Now, she was the one looking up. She needed to recover. Fast. With a forced smile, she straightened her blazer, trying to reclaim control of the situation. "Sir, I sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding," she said, her voice carefully measured. "Of course, we can arrange a test drive for you." She turned to one of her salesmen. "Ethan, please." But the man held up a hand. "Don't bother." Catherine's breath hitched. "Excuse me," she said, blinking. "I don't need a test drive anymore," he said, nodding toward the briefcases. "I was going to buy several cars today." Catherine froze. Several? The air thickened as realization crashed into her. He wasn't here for just one luxury car. He had planned to buy multiple vehicles. Millions of dollars, gone, because she had judged him based on his clothes. Her stomach twisted violently, but she forced herself to keep her face neutral. "Sir, please," she started, but the man's gaze remained unreadable. He turned toward one of his men in suits. "Call up Genesis dealership," he instructed, referring to Luhari's biggest rival. "Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. A sharp gasp rippled through the room. Catherine's entire body locked up. He wasn't just walking away, he was walking straight to their competition, panic clawed at Catherine's chest. This couldn't be happening. She was one of the best managers in the business, she had never lost a deal this big. She had to fix this. Fast. "Sir, I truly apologize," she said, stepping forward, her voice tight with desperation. "I made a mistake. Let's start over. I can personally." He held up a hand. "No need," he said simply. "I don't do business where I'm not respected." That word, respected, hit her like a slap. She had spent years perfecting her image as a powerful, influential manager. And yet, in a matter of minutes, she had been reduced to just another person begging for a sale. She could feel the eyes of her employees burning into her. She had just publicly humiliated herself. And worse? She had just proven that money wasn't the only thing that mattered in this business. Reputation did. And hers was shattered. The man gave her one final glance, his lips curving into something between amusement and disappointment. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the exit. The black SUVs were still idling outside. One by one, the suited men closed the briefcases, picked them up, and followed him out the door. And as Catherine stood there, frozen, watching him leave, one terrifying thought echoed in her mind. She had just lost everything. The air inside the dealership felt thick, so thick that Catherine could barely breathe. She glanced at the computer screen, hoping, praying, that this was some kind of mistake. But no. $2.5 million. The numbers stared back at her, cold and undeniable. She swallowed hard, her carefully curated confidence starting to crack. The man stood in front of her desk, calm as ever, watching her reaction. "Is there a problem?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Catherine forced a smile, but it felt unnatural, stiff. "No, sir. No problem at all." Her voice came out different, not the same condescending tone she had used earlier. The dealership was completely silent, everyone watching, waiting to see how she would handle this. Employees who had barely paid attention before were now wide-eyed and alert. One of the men in suits stepped forward, placing one of the briefcases on the counter. With a soft click, he opened it, stacks of cash neatly lined up inside. The sound of a few gasps echoed through the room. Catherine's palms started sweating. The man, still amused, tapped a finger on the counter. "So," he said, "about that S-Class. Can I take it for a test drive now?" Catherine's mouth opened, but no words came out. Just minutes ago, she had dismissed him, humiliated him, treated him like he wasn't worth her time. And now? Now he stood there, holding the power. She forced a nervous laugh, desperate to fix her mistake. "Of course, sir. Right away. I apologize for earlier. It was just a misunderstanding." The man chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, I understood just fine." Catherine felt a fresh wave of humiliation. And then, just when she thought things couldn't get any worse, he dropped the final bombshell. "By the way," he said, looking around the showroom, "I'm actually in the market for about 6 cars today. But now..." He let the words hang in the air, tilting his head slightly as if reconsidering. Catherine's heart plummeted. This wasn't just about one sale anymore. She had just jeopardized millions of dollars. And she wasn't sure if she could fix it. Catherine stood in complete shock. She watched as the glass doors of Luhari car dealership swung shut behind Daniel Carter and his team of suited executives. A $2.5 million sale had just walked out the door. And it was her fault. The realization hit her like a wrecking ball. Her chest tightened. Her palms sweated. For the first time in her career, she felt something she never thought she would experience. Panic. The air in the showroom was thick with silence. Customers whispered. Employees exchanged knowing glances. She could feel the weight of every single pair of eyes on her, watching, judging. She had to do something. She spun around, looking for someone to blame, some way to control the situation. That's when she saw Ethan, one of her younger salesmen, standing behind a desk, arms crossed, shaking his head. Catherine's jaw tightened. "What?" she snapped. Ethan chuckled. "Nothing. Just watching you fumble the biggest sale of the year." A cold wave of humiliation rushed through her. Ethan wasn't afraid of her anymore. No one was. Because she was no longer the unshakable, powerful manager. She was the fool who just cost the dealership millions. And it was only about to get worse. Before Catherine could respond, another voice spoke up. "I can't believe you let that happen," Lisa, one of the senior finance officers, muttered under her breath. Catherine turned sharply. "Excuse me?" Lisa crossed her arms, her expression filled with disgust. You embarrassed the guy, judged him, and kicked him out. Now Genesis dealership just closed the biggest deal of the quarter. Brilliant work. More whispers rippled through the room. Catherine felt her face burn with humiliation. She had spent years crafting a reputation of being untouchable. A manager who never made mistakes. And now? She was the laughingstock of her own team. She had to fix this. She took a deep breath and turned toward the receptionist. Did that man leave a name? She asked, forcing her voice to stay calm. The receptionist hesitated, then nodded. Yes. His name was Daniel Carter. The name hit Catherine like a punch to the gut. She had heard it before. Somewhere. Frantically, she grabbed her phone and typed his name into Google. The screen loaded. And then her stomach dropped. Daniel Carter. Founder and CEO of Carter Innovations. A tech billionaire. Net worth? $4.2 billion. Catherine's breath caught in her throat. She scrolled down, seeing pictures of him in Forbes, Time, and Business Insider. Interviews where he talked about how he had built his tech empire from nothing, how he came from a poor background, how he despised people who judged others based on their appearance. And she had just done exactly that. Oh my God, she whispered. Lisa, peering over her shoulder, let out a low whistle. You really messed up, she muttered. Catherine's head spun. Daniel Carter wasn't just a rich guy. He was one of the wealthiest men in the country. And she had kicked him out. Pushed him straight into the arms of Genesis dealership. This couldn't be happening. She gripped the desk, trying to think. Trying to come up with a way to fix this. Then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Incoming call, Mr. Luhari, owner. Her stomach plummeted. Catherine hesitated for half a second before answering. Hello, sir, she said, her voice unsteady. The deep voice on the other end was calm, but she could hear the controlled rage beneath it. Catherine, Luhari said. Tell me this isn't true. Catherine swallowed hard. Sir, I just got off the phone with the owner of Genesis. Luhari's voice was cold. Do you know what he told me? Catherine squeezed her eyes shut. She already knew. He thanked me, Luhari continued, mocking her. He thanked me for sending him a billionaire. He told me Daniel Carter just dropped over $2 million at his dealership. Catherine gripped the desk so hard her fingers hurt. Sir, Shut up. The sheer rage in his voice made her flinch. You humiliated a man who could have single-handedly boosted our entire sales quarter. A man who could have brought us VIP clients, contracts, investors. And instead, you sent him to our biggest competitor. Her chest tightened. I should fire you, Luhari said coldly. The word sent a shockwave through her. She had always thought she was untouchable. But now, in a single day, she had gone from being the top manager to being one mistake away from losing everything. I should fire you right now, Luhari repeated, his voice low and deadly. Catherine stared at the floor, her entire world crumbling. She wanted to scream. To beg. To fix it. Then, after a long pause, Luhari exhaled sharply. But I'm not going to. Catherine's heart lurched. Instead, Luhari's voice turned icy. You are going to fix this. Immediately. Her stomach twisted. Sir, how do I? You figure it out, he snapped. Because if you don't, you won't have a job tomorrow. Click. The call ended. Catherine sat there, frozen. Her job, her reputation, everything was now hanging by a thread. And the only person who could save her was the man she had humiliated. Catherine's pulse pounded in her ears. She had never been in this situation before, never had she messed up this badly. Millions of dollars were on the line. The dealership's reputation. Her reputation. She forced another nervous smile, swallowing the lump in her throat. Sir, please, there's absolutely no issue. We would be honored to assist you with your purchase. Let's get started right away. The man exhaled softly, almost as if he found this entertaining. Oh, now you want to help me, he mused, crossing his arms. That's funny. A few minutes ago, I wasn't even allowed to test drive a car. Catherine's face burned with shame. She could feel her employees watching, silently judging her. The customers in the showroom whispered to each other. Some even smirked. She had publicly humiliated this man, and now the tables had turned. I truly apologize for the misunderstanding, she said, her voice sickly sweet. I assure you, we are happy to accommodate. The man held up a hand, cutting her off. Happy to accommodate, he repeated, shaking his head. You weren't happy to accommodate me until you saw my money. Catherine's stomach twisted into knots. Sir, You judged me the second I walked in. You didn't ask about my budget. You didn't ask about my name. You didn't even give me basic customer service. Catherine had no defense. Because he was right. The silence in the dealership felt heavy. Then, he took a slow step closer. His voice was calm, but sharp as a blade. You see, he said, people like you always assume they can decide who is worthy and who isn't. Catherine's jaw tightened. But here's the thing. He leaned slightly on the counter. I don't give my business to people who don't respect me. Her breath caught. The meaning of his words settled in. He wasn't just here to make a point, he was about to walk out with his millions. No, please, she blurted out. Let's start fresh. Let me show you our top models, and I'll personally. No need. He turned toward one of his men in suits. Call up Genesis dealership, he instructed, referring to a competing luxury car dealer. Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. Catherine froze. Genesis dealership. Their biggest rival. She couldn't afford to let this sale walk out. She couldn't afford to lose him. But as she watched him turn toward the door, she realized something horrifying. She already had. Catherine sat frozen at her desk, her breathing uneven. Luhari's words echoed in her mind. Fix this. Immediately. But how? She had humiliated Daniel Carter. Judged him. Rejected him. And now, the entire dealership knew what she had done. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone, opening the email app. She typed furiously, crafting an apology. Subject, my deepest apologies. Dear Mr. Carter, I sincerely regret how I treated you today. My actions were unprofessional, and I deeply apologize. I would love the opportunity to make things right and personally assist you with your purchase. Please let me know if you would consider giving us another chance. Best regards. Catherine Monroe. General Manager, Luhari Car Dealership. She hesitated for only a second before hitting send. Then, she waited. The seconds stretched into minutes. Nothing. Her career was on the line. If Daniel Carter didn't respond, she was done. A notification popped up. New email. Her heart leapt as she opened it. Subject, my deepest apologies. Catherine. I appreciate the email. But respect isn't something you give only when it's convenient, it's something you show to everyone, no matter what they look like. I won't be returning. Best. Daniel Carter. Catherine stared at the screen. No. This wasn't just a rejection, this was final. She had lost him. She refused to accept it. This was not how her career was going to end. She dialed his number. Voicemail. She tried again. Still voicemail. She slammed the phone down, her breath shaking. This couldn't be happening. Then she had an idea. What if she went to him? It was risky. But she had no choice. She grabbed her coat and stormed out of her office. Where are you going? Ethan asked, watching her with thinly veiled amusement. Catherine didn't stop. Fixing my mistake. Ethan smirked. Too late for that. His words hit deep, but she ignored them, rushing out the door. She had to try. 20 minutes later, Catherine pulled up to Carter Innovations, Daniel Carter's headquarters. The building was imposing, with sleek glass windows and a security team monitoring every entrance. She took a deep breath and walked inside. The receptionist barely looked up. Do you have an appointment? Catherine forced a smile. I don't, but I need to see Mr. Carter. It's urgent. The receptionist finally looked at her, unimpressed. And you are? Catherine Monroe. I'm the general manager at Lohari Car Dealership. The receptionist's expression hardened instantly. We don't take walk-ins, Ms. Monroe. If Mr. Carter wanted to speak with you, he'd have responded to your email. Catherine's throat tightened. I need 2 minutes. The receptionist sighed. Ma'am, Mr. Carter has made it clear. I'll wait, Catherine blurted. The receptionist's eyebrows shot up. But Catherine had no other option. She sat in the waiting area, staring at the glass doors, praying that Carter would walk through them. Seconds turned to minutes. Minutes turned to an hour. Still, no one came. Catherine rubbed her temples, her pride crumbling by the second. Had she really fallen this far? Then, suddenly, footsteps echoed through the lobby. She looked up. Daniel Carter. And he was not alone. Daniel walked in, surrounded by 2 executives in tailored suits, talking business. His gaze landed on Catherine for only a fraction of a second. But it was enough. She shot up from her seat. Mr. Carter, please, just a moment, she said, stepping forward. His expression remained calm. Unbothered. Indifferent. I read your email, he said coolly. Catherine's stomach tightened. Then you know. I also read about how you've treated other customers in the past. Her face paled. Oh, no. He knew. He had looked her up. She opened her mouth, but he continued. Let me be clear, Ms. Monroe, he said, his voice steady, unreadable. I don't do business with people who only respect money, not people. Catherine's breath hitched. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks. And after today? Neither will a lot of others. Her chest tightened. What? What do you mean? She whispered. Daniel gave her one last slow, knowing look. Then he turned and walked away. A moment later, Catherine's phone buzzed. A news article notification. She tapped it with shaky hands. Lohari Car Dealership faces backlash after billionaire Daniel Carter exposes discriminatory treatment. Her breath caught. Carter's team confirms he has cut ties with Lohari and has encouraged his network of high-profile clients to take their business elsewhere. Catherine's hands went cold. This wasn't just about one sale anymore. She had just destroyed the dealership's reputation. And her own. For good. Catherine's entire world tilted as she watched the man turn toward the exit. She had just lost a multi-million-dollar sale. She had just handed her competition the biggest deal of the year. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stay composed. She had to fix this. Wait, she called, stepping around the desk, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The man paused but didn't turn around. Catherine swallowed her pride, something she had never done before. Sir. I truly regret the way I treated you, she said, her voice softer now, more desperate. It was unprofessional. I misjudged you. But please, give us a chance to make this right. The man turned his head slightly, considering her words. The entire dealership was dead silent. The employees, the customers, even the security guards, everyone waited to see what would happen next. For a brief moment, Catherine thought she saw something shift in his expression. But then, with a small smirk, he said, Nah. I think I'll take my money where I'm respected. Boom. The final blow hit her harder than she expected. He walked toward the exit, his men in suits following him, the briefcases of cash still unopened. The front doors swung open, and the fleet of black SUVs outside revved their engines. The moment he stepped out, the weight of reality crashed down on her. She had just lost the biggest sale of her career. And even worse, she had just exposed herself. Everyone in the dealership had seen what happened. The customers who once admired her professionalism now whispered about her bias. Employees who once feared her now looked at her with pity. Her face burned with humiliation. She had spent years building her reputation. And in just 10 minutes, she had destroyed it. Catherine sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The glowing headline from her phone screen burned into her vision like a brand. Luhari Car Dealership faces backlash after billionaire Daniel Carter exposes discriminatory treatment. Her hands trembled. She scrolled further. The article was already spreading across business forums, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Shocking to see this kind of behavior still happening in luxury spaces. Luhari just lost a customer base worth millions. At Forbes Business, Catherine Monroe, the manager in question, has a long history of profiling customers. Not surprised this happened. At Industry Insider, good on Carter for putting them on blast. Hope Genesis dealership treats him better. At Wealth Talk CEO, her chest tightened. They were calling her out by name. This wasn't just a lost sale. This was a PR disaster. She could already imagine the fallout. Corporate would be furious. Clients would start canceling appointments. And her boss? Luhari was going to kill her. Her phone buzzed. Lisa, Finance Department. Catherine, we just lost 3 VIP clients. They saw the article. They don't want to be associated with us. Catherine's stomach sank. Then another notification. Ethan, sales rep. You might want to get back here. Luhari's on the warpath. Her breath hitched. This wasn't just damage control anymore. This was a full-blown crisis. She threw the car into drive and sped back toward the dealership. The moment Catherine walked into Luhari Car Dealership, she felt it. The shift. The air was heavy with tension. Employees who usually greeted her with respect looked away, whispering, avoiding eye contact. Some of them smirked. They knew. She wasn't untouchable anymore. She stormed toward her office, but before she could reach the door, Catherine. My office. Now. She turned, and there stood Mr. Luhari himself. Her boss. His face was like stone, his eyes blazing with controlled fury. She swallowed hard and followed him. The door slammed shut behind her. Luhari paced behind his desk, running a hand over his face. Then, without warning, he slammed his fist on the desk. What the hell did you do? Catherine flinched. Sir, Do you have any idea how much money you've cost us? He snapped. How much damage you've done to this company's reputation? Catherine's throat was dry. Sir, I sent an apology to Mr. Carter, but... Oh, an apology? Luhari let out a bitter laugh. You think an apology is going to fix this? He turned his laptop screen toward her. It was worse than she thought. Carter's post had gone viral. Celebrities, influencers, and other high-net-worth individuals were in the comments boycotting Luhari. I've bought 3 cars from Luhari in the past. Never again. At Wealth Elite CEO. Shameful. Disrespecting a billionaire like this? Imagine how they treat regular people. At Luxury Life Mag. Genesis dealership just gained a lifetime customer. Luhari is finished. At Ultra Rich Daily. Finished. That word made Catherine's blood run cold. She had worked for years to get to the top. And now, in less than 24 hours, she was about to lose everything. Luhari took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Catherine," he said, quieter this time. She braced herself. "You've been with this company for years. You were one of my top managers." Catherine felt a flicker of hope. "But I can't ignore this." The flicker died. "You're fired." The words felt like a gunshot. Catherine's ears rang. "Sir, please." Luhari raised a hand. "It's over, Catherine. You didn't just lose a sale. You cost us millions. And worse, you cost us our name." Her chest ached. Everything she had worked for. Gone. "Security will escort you out," Luhari said, turning away. "Collect your things." The office door opened. 2 security guards waited outside. Catherine's body felt numb. She wanted to argue, to plead. But she knew. She had done this to herself. Slowly, she stood up, smoothing her blazer, trying to hold on to any last shred of dignity. Then, without another word, she walked out of the office. And out of Luhari car dealership forever. The glass doors shut behind the man, and just like that, he was gone. But the silence he left behind was louder than any explosion. Catherine stood frozen, her stomach twisting into knots. She could still hear the faint roar of the SUV engines outside as they drove away, taking millions of dollars with them. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping across the showroom. The employees wouldn't meet her eyes. Some looked away awkwardly, others whispered to each other. The customers? They were staring. Some in shock. Some in judgment. And then she heard it. A soft chuckle. It came from one of her younger salesmen, Ethan, who stood behind a desk, shaking his head. Catherine's jaw tightened. "Something funny?" she snapped. Ethan raised an eyebrow, clearly unfazed. "Yeah. Watching you fumble a $2.5 million sale is kind of funny." Her face burned. She started, but another voice cut her off. "I can't believe you let that happen," another employee muttered under their breath. Catherine whipped around. "Excuse me?" A woman from finance, Lisa, crossed her arms. "You embarrassed the guy, judged him, and kicked him out. Now, Genesis dealership is about to close the biggest deal of the quarter. Great job." Catherine felt a lump in her throat. This was slipping out of her control. She had been the respected, feared manager of Luhari car dealership for years. But now? She looked weak. She looked like a failure. Her breath came faster as she forced herself to regain control. "I don't pay you all to stand around gossiping," she snapped, her voice sharper than before. "Get back to work." The room fell into an uneasy silence. One by one, employees turned away, but she could still feel the weight of their thoughts. Their disappointment. Their judgment. Her chest tightened as she stalked back to her office, slamming the glass door behind her. But just as she sat down at her desk, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. "Incoming call, Mr. Luhari, owner." Her stomach dropped. He had seen what happened. And now, she was about to face the real consequences. Catherine stepped out of Luhari car dealership for the last time. The cool air hit her face, but it did nothing to calm the storm raging inside her. Behind her, employees whispered. She could hear their murmurs, the quiet snickers. She had once commanded fear and respect in that building. Now? She was nothing but a cautionary tale. She clutched the cardboard box filled with her belongings, framed certificates, a luxury pen set, a photo of her shaking hands with Mr. Luhari when she was first promoted. She had spent years building her career. And in 24 hours, it was gone. She reached her car, but before she could unlock the door, she heard someone behind her. "Hey, Catherine." She turned. Ethan. The young salesman stood there, hands in his pockets, a knowing smirk playing at his lips. Guess you're not so untouchable after all, huh? He said. Catherine stiffened. Enjoy your new life, he added, before turning and walking back inside. She clenched her jaw so hard it hurt. She would not cry. Not here. Not in front of them. With shaking hands, she got into her car, started the engine, and drove away. For the first time in years, Catherine had nowhere to be. No power meetings. No sales quotas. No dealership to manage. She parked in front of her apartment complex, but didn't get out. She just sat there. Her phone buzzed. Email notification. Subject: termination of employment, final details. Catherine, your final paycheck will be processed within the next 2 weeks. As per your contract, your company benefits will be terminated effective immediately. Additionally, due to the nature of your dismissal, you will not be receiving a severance package. Regards. HR Department. Catherine's stomach dropped. No severance? That was hundreds of thousands of dollars she had been counting on. She quickly opened her bank app. Her balance, $18,920. That might have sounded like a lot to some people, but for her, someone used to making 6 figures, it was nothing. Her bills. Her luxury apartment. Her car payments. If she didn't find a job fast, she would lose everything. She took a deep breath and opened LinkedIn. She needed a new job. Fast. She clicked on the job search bar, but before she could type, a notification popped up. Someone had tagged her in a post. She clicked on it, her heart pounding. It was a business blog article. Luxury car dealership manager faces consequences after billionaire Daniel Carter exposes discriminatory practices. The article had been shared over 10,000 times. Her name was trending. The comment section was brutal. She got what she deserved. Who would ever hire her after this? People like her ruined the industry. Glad she got fired. Her hands shook as she scrolled. Then, she saw it. A comment from someone she used to work with at another dealership. She treated people like trash for years. No sympathy. Her stomach twisted. She quickly navigated to her LinkedIn messages. She sent a desperate message to a hiring manager she knew at a competing dealership. Catherine. Hey, I saw that your team is hiring. I'd love to discuss the opportunity. Let me know if we can chat. A response came almost immediately. Hiring manager. Catherine, I saw the news. I don't think you'd be a good fit for our company. Good luck. She sent 3 more messages to former colleagues. All left her on read. Her connections were gone. Her reputation was destroyed. She wasn't just unemployed. She was blacklisted. Catherine stared at the screen for a long time. Then, slowly, she closed her laptop. For the first time in years, she felt something she never thought she would experience. Hopelessness. She had always believed in power, success, and money. She thought that as long as she had those things, she would be untouchable. But now she was just another failure. She walked to her kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat at the table, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed again. She considered ignoring it until she saw the name on the screen. Mom. Catherine hesitated, then answered. Hi, Mom, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Catherine? Her mother's voice was worried. I just read the news. What happened? Catherine opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. For the first time in a long time, she felt small. Her mother sighed. Catherine, maybe it's time to change. Catherine closed her eyes, gripping the wine glass tightly. Maybe her mother was right. But the real question was, could she? Catherine sat in her dimly lit apartment, staring at her untouched glass of wine. She had lost everything. Her job. Her reputation. Her future. The phone in her hand felt heavy. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Maybe it's time to change. For the first time, she didn't have a choice. With a deep breath, she opened Google and searched. How to rebuild your career after public failure. She scrolled through article after article. Most were useless. Take responsibility. Network smarter. Start from the bottom. None of them told her how to erase a mistake like hers. Then, her phone buzzed. A new email. She opened it. From Daniel Carter. Subject, one chance. Catherine. You once judged me by my appearance. Let's see if you're willing to judge yourself the same way. Meet me at my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. No suits. No titles. Just you. Her breath hitched. This was it. Her only chance to fix what she had destroyed. Catherine arrived at Carter Innovations the next morning, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. No power suit. No designer heels. Just her. Daniel Carter sat behind his desk, arms crossed, studying her. You've spent years believing power comes from status, appearance, money, he said. Tell me, where did that get you? Catherine clenched her jaw. I lost everything. Daniel nodded. Good. Now you're ready to listen. Silence filled the room. Then, Daniel slid a document across the desk. Catherine's eyes widened. A job offer. But not for luxury sales. Customer service. At entry-level salary. Catherine's stomach churned. This was humiliating. But then she looked up at Daniel. He was testing her. Just like she had tested him. Slowly, she reached for the pen. And for the first time in her life, she said, I'll take it. Daniel smirked. Good. Now let's see if you can finally learn something.